KMT could go, all right, they're just going to go with Elise again, which leaves the Kayle open later on if they want to go with that. I don't necessarily think this is the best pick and ban phase from NIP. They're banning Olaf again, even though it hasn't been proven to be effective here. There was no real adaptation needed by KMT, and they're sitting on this Elise, so maybe they're going to change it, but I expect that Elise to be a strong pick.
And I'm wondering if we're going to start seeing a bit more aggression coming out from hyrqBot. Obviously, the Mumu pick didn't really work. There was nothing that came out of it. Didn't even keep up the farm. Didn't help out any of the ganks. The Curse of the Sad Mommy really wasn't crucial in any fight at all because they only got 2 kills after all. Yeah,
and they only used Curse of the Sad Mummy a couple of times. It almost never set up a kill. The most people he hit on, one of those was 3 people in a dragon fight. But this Renekton is the other thing they can go with, knowing that the main top laners are gone, so they're picking Renekton. No, what are they doing to me?
Well, immediately Zorazero's like, yeah, thanks, I'll take that, no problem. Not gonna mess around with that one. Lucian also being picked in there as well. So quick picks for Ninjas in Pyjamas. They know what they want.
Yeah, the top laner that's left, and also the strong AD carry for Freeze to try and make more of an impact. While Ezreal is kind of a safe champion, Lucian does a lot more damage and can make a lot more aggression happen in the laning phase. Because they had the Amumu in the last game, they weren't looking to push heavy in the lane phase. This game, they probably are.
We'll see what KMT go with. They're taking their time over this one, and why not? Their careers are on the line. They have been watching from the sidelines for effectively the last year. They've been partaking in all the Challenger tournaments, everything they can get hold of to keep themselves in existence and keep this lineup, which has been together in various forms, various names. They have been there and thereabouts for the entire period of time, but still, this is a big pick for them.
Yeah, and they were very close to not even making it into this tournament.
Yeah.
Yet, they're very known players, and based on that first game, they seem incredibly strong coming in here, so NIP, they had their choice, really, of who they wanted to play, and they decided to pick these guys. That's almost a bit of a call-out right there to KMT. I like the Caitlyn pick. It's putting Celaver on a total comfort champion. It's something that NIP banned away from him in the last game, and I'm excited to see how he plays that against Lucian.
Yeah, and talking about them not making it, I personally had TSM down, TCM, not TCM,
I think most people
down to actually
TCM.
Qualify, and it was that last battle, that last fight. TCM performed brilliantly when they were in Tenerife, but unfortunately when it came down to it, KMT had the better of them in the 3.14 patch and seemed to have hit a spike of form just at the right time.
Yeah, especially based on that composition they picked last time. The Annie-Lucian lane is strong on its own, but if hyrqBot thinks the Amumu wasn't the problem, he can still pick it again. It's not like Amumu wasn't a strong jungler, it just doesn't give them early game presence in the jungle, which is what I think a lot of people think they need.
We'll see whether they try and draw this one out once again. It was a very slow play. Of course, the big important decision will be about these mid laners. What will we see? Overpow and Nukeduck running. The final pick's coming out for KMT here. They can get countered, and of course that Kayle is allowed. And why wouldn't they take it? Indeed, there was nothing really to counter it. Ooh, we may even see the old traditional Jax versus Renekton bout.
Jax doesn't fare too well in this matchup.
We proved it in the World Championships.
Over and over again, if it was Renekton against Jax, wasn't a Jax in the game, really. He was just kind of there to get stunned by Renekton. But if they think they can take this late game, this tells me they're going 1v2 as much as possible. Caitlyn is one of the strongest champions in the 1v2 because her pushing is almost unmatched. And the Kayle would make sense because it combos with Elise for the magic penetration again.
Well, we do see Riven locked in for the mid lane. Well,
they're waiting for Kayle.
We've seen things Faker does many times with Riven, but let's see what Nukeduck can do.
So what Nukeduck is going to be trying to do against Overpow in this mid lane matchup, Riven is not affected by slows nearly as much as other champions since she can dash around so much. And once Overpow gets a slow on, it's going to be a lot of all-inning. So if Nukeduck decides to play a little bit aggressive, which he doesn't, we could see some action.
Absolutely. So teams locked in here. What do we see overall? Last time, it was dragged out. They went, oh God, 20 minutes before we saw first blood. This time, I feel we may see some more ganks, more attempts, and possibly some 3v1 stacking on the lanes. I
think NIP has picked a much stronger laning composition this time, outside of the Amumu. Their lanes by themselves are very strong, which means that Jankos's Elise will have much more to do early game. And
was about, but nevertheless, we are underway once
Nice
again.
and quick.
Finally, game 2 is underway. We see Ninjas in Pyjamas there on your screens, making their way in a different approach. So we'll see whether we get any level 1 fights, because KMT already 1-0 up, seemingly have the advantage coming into the game.
Yeah, KMT, despite only having 22% of the fans vote for them, had a convincing yet long victory in the first matchup.
He's thinking about it. Oh, hyrqBot just gave his position away. I'm not too sure whether he saw it or not, though.
I don't think he did.
I don't think he'd quite gone across as much. We did see a kill there, of course, against Team Solo mid earlier on in the day when the Thresh hook landed, followed by the Sion stun. Yes, I am lying.
Nice.
It was a Sion stun in
Sion. That was a fun game.
It was a fun game.
I like seeing Sion running around with boots of mobility. Gives me just flashbacks to when it was good.
To when it was good, as opposed to today. But nevertheless, KMT seemingly not going to go for the 2v1 lanes here.
No, I mean, they did survive the 2v2 lane despite having a very disadvantageous matchup last time. Maybe Celaver wants a little bit of revenge, saying, I can actually have a fair lane this time. Caitlyn versus Lucian, I think actually favors Lucian a little bit because he does so much damage when he's in trades. But Caitlyn of any AD carry can stick with it the best.
Looks like it's going to be a red buff start for both teams. We do see hyrqBot with the help of Zorozero starting out. Of course, the duo laning helping off Jankos there, who got a little bit overeager, putting his spider out there. A couple of seconds too soon, son. You know, it spawns at the same time every single game, but seems to be a little bit overeager. Maybe that's just a little tweak of nerves there.
I've had those Lee Sins that try and queue over the wall to be fancy when a blue buff spawns. Sometimes they get so close, it's like they're the most arrogant players possible. I haven't seen him miss it yet, though. No. Spider missed there.
Spider did miss it. Let's see how these lanes are going to work out. Right now, we see the classic Renekton versus Jax lane. And, you know, traditionally, this goes heavily in favor of Renekton.
Absolutely. The fact that Renekton has so much early damage, and then he has the stun control on Jax, plus very easy in and outing. He's too much of a force for Jax to deal with early. And it's rather unfair at many points. That's why you see the Crystalline Flask on Xaxus. He's really just trying to farm.
Meanwhile, the mid lane of Overpow versus Nukeduck. This time around is going to be Kale, who is actually coming looking down towards there. I wasn't sure if he was going to go for the invade, forcing the flash already there. Freeze having to burn that one out. That will give us some attention for Jankos. We may see him going aggressive in the bottom, but right now it's the top he looks like he's focusing on.
And if he started red buff, he's wanting to get level 3 and then get this gank off. The ward has actually expired for Zorozero, so he is somewhat gankable, probably going to just burn a Slice and Dice or Summoner.
Double buff in there, he is going to throw out that cocoon, eventually completely missing it on Zorozero.
A little bit of fancy juking right there. He could have just sliced and flashed, but he dared the stun to miss him and got to save his flash. But that is a risky move to pull when you're already down 1-0 in a promotion series, but gets away with it. That's why he's good.
Confident play. A couple of CS being missed out in that mid lane, and it's actually already a big disadvantage. Not even close again there. But it's 21-11 CS in this mid lane. Overpow versus Nukeduck.
Yeah, really early on in the game, Overpow's been able to shove faster than Nukeduck. He timed his ranged attacks with Kale well enough so that Nukeduck couldn't get in on him. And that whole mid lane is going to be a push-pull for quite some time, whether or not Nukeduck can get in range to stop Overpow from shoving.
And the bottom lane, of course, we've seen the flash being burned out there. Does surprise me, but we haven't seen actually Jankos coming down here the moment that we saw Freeze using up that flash. Obviously, it's on a long cooldown, but hyrqBot maybe he's going to try and return the favor, and I'll tell you what, Xaxus is well out of position.
Especially if he gets a little bit aggressive, he should go right now.
He's going to go in there. He does manage to jump with the counter-strike, but again, that's going to be a very easy banish shot, and the flash is forced out from Xaxus, so Summoner Spell has been used in the top.
Yeah, they did burn the flash. I think that gank could have been a little cleaner by NIP. Zorozero and hyrqBot would have wanted the chain stuns before the flash ends up happening, but they gave him a leap strike target that took him to safety, why the angle that hyrqBot took to go in, which meant the flash would save him.
Mithy trading with Vander. Meanwhile, we see Celaver and Freeze trading back and forth, and actually it was Mithy this time coming out on top. Nukeduck is really under pressure in this mid lane, though. Overpow continuing to drive those minions onto the tower.
Yeah, and you can actually see Elise is waiting in the wings, hoping that Amumu would come and gank so they can win a trade. Let's see if it happens.
The hook onto Mithy, the flay follows through, but he's in tower range, gets stunned out there, and again, another even trade between the two duo lanes.
Yeah, it turns out that Riven just has to go back to base as well. The duo lanes are actually getting in the favor of KMT. The Caitlyn Thresh, thanks to Vander either burning flashes with hooks or getting a bunch of damage out with hooks, is what's pulling the lane in their favor.
So, as it stands, it is, again, falling into almost the same traps of last game. And NIP both backing off quite early on here. Let's see if they're going to go for some lane swaps, I'm wondering. We're approaching 6-minute mark, and it seems that it's not working out in their favor in this bottom lane, so they may just try and switch it up.
I think like a lane swap at this juncture in the game would just set them farther behind because they'd lose all the time of running to their lanes initially. They just need to wait for Renekton to hit level 6, get a little bit more power, and then hope that Freeze and Mithy can pull a kill on this bottom lane once they get level 6 and Tibbers, because that's really when the Annie lane gets the most powerful. hyrqBot showing himself in the bottom lane, making sure he just keeps these minions from being lost to the farm, especially when there's that siege minion there. Look at that, he really wants it, but I don't think he's going to be allowed. Freeze comes in, puts the burst damage down there. A lot of free time given from Zorozero in that top lane to keep those minions shoved in there. Jankos came up to try and protect it off there. Good cocoon, actually. A lot of damage coming back out towards him. A tower hit also. That's going to surely mean Jankos will push for him. He's got no mana. Will he repel towards him? No. I really wonder why Zorozero popped his ultimate right there, but it may have just been to make sure that Elise stayed occupied so that NIP could grab this dragon.
Well, 3 members of KMT are coming around. They may try and go for it. They do land the hook, but that's going to be a foolish errand to posh in towards it. And Freeze was the target. Vander got to be careful he doesn't push in. There was 4 members of Ninjas in Pyjamas there.
But the early dragon isn't worth what it used to be. You can see even with that, the overall gold lead is only 100. They gave up a lot of lane farm to do that, and they were losing the lanes already. So it was a nice pickup to kind of keep them in it, but by no means the swing it would have been in Season 3. And
there's a huge difference between the AD carries right now. Celaver onto Freeze. You can see 61 to 35. That pressure that's been put down, as well as this mid lane, 49 to 38. Not quite such a big a gap, but seemingly the lanes are working other than the top. Zorozero obviously topping out that one currently against Xaxus.
Yeah, and even that lane isn't going hugely to Zorozero. Zorozero maybe could get a red buff. I think he wanted it, and hyrqBot told him no. That's the only reason he would check down there and get it. Someone on NIP wants to make a big thing happen, because if last game the Kayle Elise combo went crazy, this game's going to be more.
Well, blue buff this time around will be given across to Overpow once again. We'll see, of course. Don't forget the fact that hyrqBot is on the moo. He's going to keep on getting those blue buffs. Absolutely no need for it on towards Nukeduck, so he's going to keep on trying to farm out that jungle. We'll see how he keeps up with Jankos, because he didn't really keep up, and Jankos is the one that's trying to make the plays as well with the kills.
And hyrqBot did get the dragon for his team, much like Game 1. I really got to say, Jankos is one of the fastest farmers in the jungle I've seen on Elise, because in all these games, he's kept pace or went faster than Amumu.
Well, we see the little poke in the middle again. Now with Overpow, with that blue buff, he's only going to keep on shoving Nukeduck further and further in towards that tower. There's the blue buff going across towards hyrqBot. Let's see if he does anything with it this time around.
I don't know. Nukeduck burned his Riven ultimate just as the ward was thrown, but could not get into range of Overpow. So far, Overpow's positioning on Kayle has been strong enough to avoid engagements from Nukeduck. And if he continues that, he's going to continue to be able to farm up, become a monster on Kayle.
Well, Ninjas in Pyjamas have got to be worrisome. There is a spider in the bush ready and waiting to pounce. And Mithy and Freeze, if they show themselves to the right side of those minions, they put a ward straight on top of him. Jankos gets spotted out. He's going to take some lane farm and back away.
Maybe a bit of a brute force right here, though. You can see, since Overpow is shoving Nukeduck so heavily since the Riven ultimate was burned unceremoniously, they're just going to go for some fast turret pushing. This is the Caitlyn strategy paying off right now for KMT.
Well, they started off with great turret pressure in Game 1 of sweeping out, taking all 3 of them just after that dragon fight. That will be the first turret of the game, and it's KMT once again that get it down.
And look at that. hyrqBot actually threw a ward into his white camp because he's hoping to catch Jankos doing something a little bit sneaky. Gets the ward, he sees him.
He sees him. He's not falling for it. Instead, it's going to be Celaver that comes around, puts a couple of shots on towards that white. The white itself turned around, started attacking the hyrqBot with the closest target, which happened to be seemingly a visible ward, which he put damage down on towards. But nevertheless, it is going to be Zorozero doing what he did in game 1. Let's see if it's more successful for him, though. He is going to be farming between those towers. But look at this. Overpow's already coming towards him.
And this is kind of the story that Zorozero had in game 1. He was consistently trying to farm behind the turrets, and that was kind of his, I've won strategy. Once I do this, everything should work out. At that point, Overpow was able to roam and finish him off. So it's actually more the responsibility of Nukeduck to punish Overpow when that starts happening.
Xaxus pushing out, showing himself on lane, and actually a fairly even trade this time with Xaxus. hyrqBot lingering this time to try and create something. 4 members of the NIP trying to gather for this middle turret.
Yeah, NIP definitely wants to get a turret back, and the middle turret is more important than the side turrets for them. They're putting a little bit of warding down. They do have the timer on Dragon, which is going to be up in just now 2 minutes. But what are they really going to do to push against Overpow right now? They need to catch something miraculous.
And the big problem I see here is the fact that Freeze is sharing that experience with everyone. Meanwhile, Celaver, look at him down the bottom. He's already way ahead in farm, but he's getting complete free farm now, continuing pushing that lane up. Nobody's getting close enough to react to it. Nukeduck's going to come across to farm it out, and Freeze is falling behind.
And it's not really the play style that Freeze is accustomed to either. When he was on NIP, he was the type that would just love to sit and farm and stay in the back. But what NIP is pushing him towards doing right now is roaming around. He helped take the Dragon. Now he's ran mid, and he's helping with the push mid. And it's just increasing that farm disadvantage that he has to Celaver.
Interestingly, he hasn't gone Draven, which actually is a champion that some people have said is a very strong pick right now.
Yeah, Freeze was the Draven player.
Yeah.
Until I see him play it, until I see anyone play Draven in competitive, I'm not going to say he's back.
Well, we see, of course, it is a very dangerous problem diving on towards a Jax, but unfortunately for Xaxus, Zorozero hadn't swung anything at him. He is going to try and get away. The hook lands on from Vander. 4 members come around, and now hyrqBot's running for his life. There's first blood. It's Xaxus that gets it, and now hyrqBot's in trouble. Cocoon lands in there. The hook will be back up in a moment. The flay comes in. hyrqBot's going to go down. It's KMT with all of the pressure on Ninjas in Pyjamas.
And again, it is the roam from Overpow that made all of that possible. Zorozero was trying to push his advantage harder than he did in game 1, but since there was no presence in the mid lane from Nukeduck to hold Overpow there, it got backfired and 2 kills were given up.
Another hook on towards Nukeduck, and, well, KMT's back away from the turret for now, but another advantage gained, and KMT, well, seem to be enjoying NIP's playstyle. This slow play, not going for the aggression. They don't need to fear anything from hyrqBot so far.
Not at the moment. Definitely not impressed by hyrqBot's Amumu thus far. His ultimates haven't been used in 13 minutes. When they were used in game 1, they were not impactful, and his ganks have been non-existent aside from the one he tried very early on in the game. He's controlled Dragon, but that's more of a team thing. hyrqBot needs to get involved.
Yeah, Ninjas in Pyjamas will secure the second Dragon of the game. That's going to keep them in this, keep them relevant. They are only a tower down so far and actually have done well at pushing those towers. They managed to keep them off. Certainly the top is completely untouched almost, and the middle turret has really not had a great deal of den. But we've seen when Overpow gets going, when he gets that build going, he will take those towers down on his own, split pushing.
Yeah, we saw this game 1, and so did NIP. But they haven't really done much against it. They're still running a health stacking tank in the top lane, who Overpow will shred through. At least they're not against a Vayne, but that's only because of KMT's choice. Whatever plan NIP had to kind of combat what happened in game 1, it's not very obvious yet.
It seems to me that they've gone with, this is our game plan and we are sticking to it, rather than reacting to what just happened in game 1.
And that's a little bit what actually happened to SUPA HOT CREW in the games against SK Gaming yesterday. They banned Vayne all 5 games. They never adapted to banning Mundo. And if you don't adapt in a best-of-5 series, you're not going to be an LCS team. NIP, unless they do something adaptive in their play style here, since they haven't adapted too much in, I guess it is their play style, and picks and bans, they're going to be in trouble.
They are going to be in a lot of trouble, and right now, they are up against it. 2-0 down. It's only 1,000 gold difference between the two teams, though, so let's not write NIP off just yet. But it seems they are falling into the exact same traps of Game 1. And if you missed it, it was definitely a slow, drawn-out process that KMT put onto Ninjas in Pyjamas, but it was very disciplined, very controlled. There was never any time, really, where KMT were up against it.
And look at this farm advantage in the bottom lane, still growing. 145 to Caitlyn, to only 108 of Freeze. Freeze is in a different place than Caitlyn right now, because honestly, if Freeze wanted to farm against Caitlyn, Caitlyn would just kill him.
He would just drop him where he stands. Like you say, there's not even close. 1,000 gold difference building up. hyrqBot, again, trying to make the plays. This time around, Xaxus is on his own. He has been singled out. We see Zorozero farming out between those towers once again. But they aren't going to go for it because KMT react instantly. They saw him pass towards the culling being used by Freeze to keep him away. But look at that, just a little bit of time bought by Overpow to put damage down on that turret. It's already down to half health.
And Zorozero is desperately trying to fight off Xaxus. This little split push game could actually benefit NIP as long as they can hold off another wave in the mid lane. With no culling, though, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. It's
going to be very hard, and this time around, both ADs are in there. The Overpow and Celaver. They should put the damage down. Nukeduck will get this bottom turret, the first one of the game for Ninjas in Pyjamas. And we do see that Zorozero is now waiting in the wings, lingering off the side there to keep NIP that turret.
It was a nice hold there because Zorozero kind of overpowered Xaxus while running down, so that he was the only person down there, and it dissuaded KMT from pushing the middle turret. So it was a nice rotation there by NIP.
How do we see this now? We're up to, what, level 11 between these two champions. Jax has done a fairly reasonable job at keeping up with Xaxus. Obviously, you can see it's a 30 CS difference. No doubt about there's obviously Zorozero's out farming him, but he's not at any single time being in danger.
No, and now that Jax has a little bit of sustain, he's much more powerful. Once he gets Blade of the Ruined King, he may actually swing that matchup. Look out for a Mumu, though.
Well, it may be curse of the commentator right now because we see hyrqBot coming up. Bandage toss already missed, though, and by the time they actually catch on towards him, Jankos is going to be joining them. We already see as well Vander is coming up to help him out there, and he's escaped this, no problem.
Yeah, very calm in the way that Xaxus decided to avoid that. He knew he had flash. He dodged or just pulled back from the max range hyrqBot bandage toss. And then he knew he had the backup. He knew he had enough time because Jax at this point in the game is actually fairly resilient.
Very hard to pin down as well with that Blade of the Ruined King. So you can just see he's just dodging around it as it stands. Overpow having a look at towards Nukeduck. Nukeduck realizing the danger, getting straight out of there. Overpow's going to follow on towards this one, put a lot more damage down and bully him out of the lane, forcing the flash from Nukeduck. Wasn't in danger.
I'm confused right now because Nukeduck picked that Riven as a counter. He picked it last in the champion select, knowing he was up against a Kayle. He also laned in the first game against a Kayle. Yet every time he looks at Overpow or is in the lane, he's running away. So why did he pick that Riven? What use is his team getting out of this one? I haven't seen it yet.
Well, Ninjas in Pyjamas, big pressure starting to build on them players now. Somebody in this team has to step up. Somebody has to grow a pair and suddenly make a play, because right now KMT have this game exactly where they want it. Gold-wise, you can see it's close. It's a tower of peace. But clearly, KMT have the advantages. Every time someone makes a play, it's KMT. Every time NIP tries something, KMT counter it. Every time KMT make a play, NIP are running.
And then the last game, it was the Dragon fight that really started swinging it for KMT. Dragon is up again in 30 seconds. So far, the Dragons have kind of been traded because teams have been out of position or sneaking it. But now, knowing it's close, knowing we're close to 20 minutes yet again, we could actually see a fight when the Dragon spawns again.
Nukeduck just chasing down the farm. Maybe hits an item he's after. Maybe chasing. Oh, that was a double pink ward from Mithy and hyrqBot. Communication is not right.
That's 100 gold completely wasted. At least it'll take an extra 5 hits to get vision control back in that. Maybe that'll come into their benefit later if they catch someone with a bandage toss because they're stuck there hitting a pink ward.
Thinking, God, I've got so much gold to gain from here. Jankos is going to be the one that's going to find it. And the rest of KMT are all in place. Looking towards the top lane, you can see they are not involved in this fight, so it's going to be a 4-on-4. And it may well be hyrqBot coming in. Curse of the Sad Mummy is available. Flash is in. Does catch all 4 members of it. Is it going to be enough to turn it around? Ninjas in Pyjamas putting the damage down. That is Celaver down now. Jankos tries to flash away. He's going to be freeze, follows through. Repels in towards the golems. He will escape, but down the bottom you can see Overpow and Vander running for their lives. Nukeduck is chasing, hyrqBot's coming in. Mithy has got flash stun available, catches on towards Overpow. Overpow will get dropped. Instant Pyjamas turning this massively in their favor right now. Jankos and Vander, bandage toss on towards Vander. That's a third kill, and that is exactly what Instant Pyjamas needed.
They finally got a fight where hyrqBot landed on Mumu ult, and Riven could follow up. NIP didn't make it in time for the Dragon, but they still got a lot back from that fight. Despite losing the Dragon, the kills and this turret give them a very slight, or should, gold lead? If I'm doing my math right, it's 100 gold.
So, inner turret traded, top turret went down because Zorozero was making his way. Didn't actually get involved in the fight, but he left that turret, which means Xaxus did take that free turret in the top lane. Ace in the hole, not going to be enough. Oh, Nukeduck on 35 hit points there as he escapes.
Normally, Rivens will save their shield for when Ace in the hole gets used, but he was too worried about Celaver getting in range for an auto attack. Let's actually look at this Dragon, though. Flash ult caught 4, and then Nukeduck down at the bottom used his ultimate a little early for the executes. It didn't quite finish off everyone. And also, hyrqBot missed a couple bandage tosses throughout this fight. It was, in retrospect, a really bad Dragon for KMT to group up inside, because NIP played that fight far from perfectly and still came out with so many kills. Finally, hyrqBot lands a bandage at the end here, which gives them that final kill and the extra turret, but not the crispest of play from NIP. You can tell they're pressing a little bit.
Yeah, and that's despite obviously a perfect Curse of the Sad Mommy, catching all 4 members that were down there. If you just missed it in the little picture-in-picture down that bottom there, we saw KMT took down that middle turret. So they are now 3 to turret, 2 in turret favor, and actually it gives them that gold lead once again.
Still not many kills.
No.
We had 13 kills in the last one for about, what, 3,100 CS. We're at a slightly better ratio this time, and you could tell NIP was a little more desperate in the way they were finding fights, so this game should get a little more bloody than the last one fairly soon.
Well, Overpow was the man that created the difference last time around, and we see him going down there. Nukeduck, the moment he spots him, backed away. Didn't want to go towards it again. He is lingering. Maybe he fancies it.
He really needs to wait until Overpow walks into range so that he can get a stun and start his knock-up chain on the enemy, and Overpow just doesn't do that as long as he's in vision of Nukeduck. He's using his heal on himself to gain extra move speed and always throwing that slow out to Nukeduck when he gets close.
Keeping him at bay. 236 CS now for Celaver, building up 78 of Freeze, but Freeze has that Trinity Force now. He's going to go for the last Whisper, it seems, next item, so has a Lucian, has a lot of power. Meanwhile, the Static Shiv and Bloodthirster being picked up by Celaver. I guess the last Whisper will come out after that. And as it is, we didn't see either top laner involved in that last fight. That's going to be the interesting point. Once Jax gets involved, because he's almost certainly going to go for Mithy or Freeze.
Yeah, he's actually a rather squishy Jax, though, and unless he can get in directly onto Freeze, he's not going to be able to withstand too much. Blade of the Ruined King to Triforce. It's a really high damage Jax, but if Mithy saves a stun for when Jax decides to jump in, he actually won't have too much of an impact.
Well, middle turret's being given up here. Ninjas in Pyjamas will take that. It's going to square things off. Oh, that may have been a little bit too far. They didn't get the turret, and immediately they pop that talisman to get that extra speed. Freezer's taking low, Ace in the hole's going to get blocked off by Zorozero. Cocoon was not even close from Jankos. That's going to be Tibbers thrown out, and they're going to fight for the 50 gold.
Tibbers, where the stun wasn't even charged, isn't really a Tibbers. It's just it's a 50 gold pinata.
It's given them 50 gold, especially when there's 5 members of KMT chasing, and now that gives them siege potential because they know one of those big ultimates is down. Of course, Curse of the Sad Mommy is available, but they're thinking, well, we don't care because the AD carry has been forced back. Tibbers is not available. We can keep pressure on and just take all the gold advantages from the jungles.
Yeah, surprisingly, they just all decide to back away, though, because they're playing it a little bit safe. There's a huge wave bottom lane that they wanted to get to ASAP. And if KMT would have tried to take stuff in the jungle while Overpow was in the bottom lane, it would have actually risked dying a fair bit. So this is actually the smart play by KMT to pull all the way back.
Yeah, they had no real objective to go for. Speaking of objectives, that top turret, Zorozero has been working hard to get towards it, but has yet to close in. We are seeing Mithy is with him this time, trying to draw him in towards that push. They have got the stun. Counter-strike is not going to land on anyone, but again, leap strikes away. It's got the tower to safety, and everybody knows, don't dive a Jax on the turret.
It's amazing that he still has that turret. 24 minutes into the game. considering he's down 60 CS to that Renekton. Zorozero has spent so much time farming behind the turret that he hasn't actually put any damage onto the turret. And NIP could use that global gold right about now.
Yeah, obviously trying to keep the pressure on towards Xaxus, but Jax is not too worried about the lanes now. He's going to clear that wave in no time at all. It's about time he did, like you say, take that objective down. As it stands, Last Whispers now completed by Freeze, but look at Celaver. Celaver went with the I can never remember the damn name of that one. The Quicksilver Sash, the QSS is what I was going to call it, which everybody would have known it for anyway. 5 seconds until the dragon spawns, though, and those 2 pink wards have finally been taken down in that river.
But it took them a long time.
It did take them a long time, that's for sure.
They lasted like twice as long as your normal
Oh, Hook's going to land. It's going to be on Zorozero. Slice and dices away, but half his hit points are already gone. And with the dragon just spawning, that is bad times for NIP.
And they know where Nukeduck is. They're pinging him off. I still feel like Zorozero can get involved in this fight. He gains a lot of health from his dominance, and there's the bandage. Maybe there's a fight.
hyrqBot comes in, now takes Xaxus down and low. Ooh. This is actually now an equal trade. You're going to see the stun coming out from Mithy already. They're split heavily across this one. You can see that's going to be the repel away. The damage going back on towards Zorozero. Not a lot between the 2 teams. And Ninjas and Pyjamas are going to try and create an advantage and shove that inner turret.
They still have Curse of the Sad Mummy up, but they've lost Riven ultimate and Renekton ultimate and Tivers. So if KMT can find some kind of fight, I think they should take it.
You see, try and throw the hook out. Zorozero, Ignite being put down. The Flay comes out, and Ninjas in Pyjamas will back away, and now it's KMT's turn. They are going to push the mid themselves.
NIP is trying to dance between objectives because they know they can't fight, but they're getting caught slowly by KMT.
Overpow puts the pressure on towards Nukeduck, forcing him away, and it's Celaver continuing to drive in towards that mid lane turret. This will be the inner turret for KMT.
And this is the result of a lot of dancing. NIP first got them off the dragon by running to the mid lane. Then they got pushed off of that by running towards Baron and keeping KMT interested. But in the eventual retreat, KMT saw the convenient turret. They take that, and since NIP had to shop afterwards, NIP ends up losing more in the long run by contesting the dragon because of how KMT played.
Very interesting play from the 2 teams, both really seemingly unsure of the power of one another so far. That was very much a feeling out of one another and simply a couple of players getting caught out of position. So we do see Zorozero. He's farming away in the bottom lane. Nukeduck has been fairly irrelevant so far in this game on this Riven pick. Now, like I say, the last pick that they had, this was the big counter. We haven't seen any of those faker plays yet.
Not even close so far. He's actually went a little defensive before a lot of Rivens would, just the Brutalizer and the Bloodthirster. Now he's going straight for the Spirit Visage. Obviously, he wants the cooldown reduction on Riven. And, you know, the one-shot resistance, as the Lich Bane has actually been completed onto Overpow. But I'm still not convinced so far by Nukeduck's Riven pick. He has not been involved. Interestingly enough, in that last fight, not to go back too far, but Mithy landed a 3-man Tibbers. And no one followed up on it. hyrqBot would have been in range too. They are a little bit out of sorts as far as their coordination goes.
Ninjas in Pyjamas thinking of pouncing in this one. hyrqBot is by, and they have that ward in that bush, but again, everybody is aware of their position. KMT already backing away. They had the ward of their own just across that bush, and Mithy instead is going to take a little bit of gold in that top lane.
May as well take a little bit of gold. His Talisman of Ascension's actually given him almost 1,000 gold at this point in the game, so you can definitely see the supports getting a little stronger, but he's going full support Annie. Not that AP mage Annie we've seen a few other people do.
Look at this. Game 1 all over again. Overpow, top lane, shoving in the wave. Xaxus, bottom lane, shoving in the wave. 3 members of KMT, ready and waiting. That hook was very close. I'm not too sure they'd have followed in on it, but they're keeping the pressure on towards NIP.
Yeah, and the real question is, who is NIP going to send to deal with those split pushers? At the moment, Jax can probably take on anyone, as well as Kale. It's the same issue that NIP ran into in Game 1.
They have to adjust their bans in Game 3. That's all I am seeing right now, because now it's to the stage. You can't leave Xaxus or Overpow alone on a turret. You can't let them get near it. They just get a couple of seconds, they will take it down. You already hear that. It's the most melodic sound in the game, a Jax beating down a turret. It's great.
And the only small wrinkle here, team composition-wise from KMT, is Celaver is not the split pusher. He's the guy who stays with the team.
Yes.
Because he was on Vayne in the last game, and he was the split push threat. But Caitlyn's a much stronger team fight AD carry, and that's why he's just sticking with the rest of the crew.
Yeah, no pressure at all. It's KMT keeping that Pressure on, and, well, that gold advantage, it started to slowly claw their direction. There was not a great deal in it. Of course, they did get that great tactical maneuver in earlier on, which got them that inner turret and the dragon. That's kind of the big differential so far, because in terms of farm, actually, you look at it, Zorozero has got that 50 CS edge, but when you're talking 227 to 276, it starts to mean less and less as the numbers get bigger.
And 1 kill evens out the gold and then some because of all the objectives. Plus, no one's going to argue that Jax outscales Renekton. It's a bad situation for NIP to be in once again. They obviously can still turn this one around if they find the right fights with hyrqBot's Amumu. And if they can combo that and Nukeduck can actually make it into the fight. They're not out of this. But with this split push threat that KMT has thrown up against them, they make it really difficult. It's a problem NIP didn't solve in Game 1, and they're having trouble solving it again in Game 2.
Yeah, and you're clearly seeing Xaxus does not care anything about Zorozero's Renekton now. He's just no cares whatsoever. Came out, said, I'm going to take these minions and there's nothing you're going to do about it, or I will hit you. And he just had to back away from that fight. Nukeduck will take the top turret. That's going to even things out. 4 apiece now. Ninjas in Pyjamas keep in check in terms of towers. That's one thing they've got going for them. Whoever wins the next fight will almost certainly push in and get an inhibitor.
And especially because the death timers are going to be rather long already. Death timers are a combination of levels and time of game, maxing out at 75 seconds. But they're going to be about 40 to 45 seconds at this point. Definitely enough time to push in for an inhibitor.
That's certainly keeping us and everybody watching sort of tension building. 31 minutes once again. Just the 5 kills. Another low-scoring matchup between these two teams. And so far, KMT are happy to play this waiting game. Zorozero's got to be careful he doesn't get drawn into this one because the rest of KMT are drawing in, but they're trying to bait it themselves. That's going to be the Cologne being used, but look off the side. Vander's in there, throws out the hook. We see Celaver having to use his cleanse because he got caught out by hyrqBot. Desperately running away from this one. Curse the sad mommy catches no one, but that's going to be a good Timbers flash through, and Ninjas in Pyjamas will pick up 1, will pick up 2. Can they get the 3rd? It's going to be Jankos. Yes, he will. He gets caught. He's repelling. Going to try and run the opposite direction, but you got nowhere to run, son, and he is going to drive. He's actually got Overpow trying to come down to help him out. It's not in time. 50 seconds before Dragon, NIP strike well.
Hey, that's the type of fights NIP needs. All 5 of them were together, and at the time of the fight, there was no split push threat. They can also go straight for Baron off of this one. There are 2 heavy damage dealers up for KMT, Kale and Caitlyn. Let's see if they can catch them. Oh, there's actually the fight one more time, and check this out. Even though the ult missed, hyrqBot was able to land a max range banish toss, and that continued it. But it was Mithy's Tibbers that really kept them in. We got to pay attention to that Baron, though, because they're going in.
They've gone in. They managed to get 1 down. It was only the AD carry, but you can see straight away that's Overpow being dropped. They are going to try and close out the Baron. Just coming around the side, Celaver. The Baron is not that low right now. Celaver's doing a good job at keeping him at bay. Manages to take the land to dash away, and they have prevented the Baron. Can they prevent any more deaths? Zorozero taking a lot of damage up towards Celaver. He will drop. Xaxus now is joining the fray, but they have backed out. They didn't get the Baron. It was a 2-for-1 trade in favor of NIP.
The kills continue. If that was a support left alive at the end of that fight, they could have taken the Baron, no problem. But the fact that it was Overpow and Celaver, 2 extremely farmed people on that KMT team, it just helped them push them off that Baron. All being said, NIP got a lot of advantages back from that. But since this Dragon just kind of goes to KMT after all of that, the gold they gained goes a little bit back.
Straight away countered, and again, it's a 2,000 gold advantage still held by KMT, despite the fact it is now 8-3, seeing more kills in those few seconds than we have the entire game. But Ninjas in Pyjamas still not in the position to drive on KMT. KMT, again, are just going to come back out and slowly push back towards NIP's base.
Well, the one thing that happened for NIP there is they found a better fight than they have found so far in the entire series. The combined dive from Nukeduck, and not so much just the first initiation try by hyrqBot, which missed, the follow-up initiation from Mithy and the chase potential of Freeze's Lucian and Nukeduck's Riven is what really took it home for them there. If they can find fights in the open field like that, they've proven here that they have the chase potential to at least get to KMT. So KMT almost needs to be more careful with the way they split push and make more sure that they don't get 5 people in the same area.
Baron's being thrown down. They're trying to get some speed on towards Jankos, and immediately... Oh, Mithy steps on that trap.
That was a well-placed trap. Always the little ones. that gets you. You could barely even see it in that thick bush near the ward.
Well, Celaver may have saved his support this time around, or his jungler, sorry, I should say, but he's continuing to farm out those waves. 70 CS advantage. And looking at the items the AD carries are starting to build up, it is starting to get scary time from them. Everybody's getting a lot of damage. This time around, Overpow is not as beastly as he was before. Hasn't got that Rabadon's Death Cap in there yet, but he has got the Void Staff along with the Lich Bane and Nash's Tooth.
Yeah, it's about 1,000 more gold until Overpow is going to be able to finish that Rabadon's Death Cap. He's sitting on 2,000 right now. And if I was NIP, I'd be trying to force a fight before then, but there's not much they can do. They couldn't get the Baron when there was only 2 people alive for KMT.
Ooh.
So at the very least, they're going to get the vision cleared and then hope to find a fight when KMT comes to stop them from doing it.
Yeah, KMT reading the situation. Celaver was heading south there. If it had showed himself towards that bottom lane, almost certainly they would have tried to initiate, tried to create something. But that's a big wave of minions down that bottom that is going to waste. And you can see Ninjas in Pyjamas, they're forcing the position. The hook gets thrown out, not going to land. They quickly turn it back around. Jankos is going to be caught well out of position. Repels straight away, but it's Xaxus now in trouble. He's going to run away. He is a very tanky box man, but you can see immediately Celaver throws out the damage again on towards Zorozero. Zorozero, not the person they should be focusing on. Ninjas in Pyjamas is still in a good situation here. Curse the Sad Mommy yet to be used. Oh, hyrqBot tried to land it there. The invulnerability being used for Xaxus as well. Freeze does take down Jankos around the side. Now it's a 4-on-5 advantage for Ninjas in Pyjamas and still not really used many ultis.
Lucian was a bit of a one-man army around the back there fighting with Elise the entire time, but there's a lot of disengaging that happens from this, and the longer that fight goes on, the more that minion wave that Celaver wanted to take about a minute ago hammers away at the turret.
Well, they are trying to put the damage down, and KMT realizing they still can't go for it. They're going to come around there. A little bit of bug. We see Tibbers getting a quick dance before he disappears, but
may as well.
Tibbers was used in that fight. hyrqBot didn't use Curse the Sad Mommy. It is still available should they need it in this next engagement, and they want to catch somebody out.
I mean, the Talisman was popped right there. That is now down. They're not syncing up their initiations as well as they'd like, but that's because KMT isn't presenting clear targets hardly ever, and it's keeping NIP in this push-pull scenario.
No, it's bought enough time. Overpow tries to go in, forces the flash from Freeze there. Zorozero has been singled out. He should be able to slice and dice. Slices over the Baron. Can't get the dice. Now he does. And he's actually going to get across. That put a static shiv knock across the entire team. Double wards getting placed by that Baron. And NIP will back away.
May have seemed like that was a preemptive flash from Freeze, but Kale may have gotten close to killing him if he would have gotten that one Q off on him. So Freeze has memories of how strong Kale is. It's almost an irrational fear at this point, but mostly rational.
Yeah, when you see Alex Hicks coming with you with Kale, it's a problem. But as it is, Xaxus continues to push on through that top lane, driving the farm. The bottom lane still hasn't been dealt with. That farm is continuing to push itself. Finally, Celaver is going to go down there. Blue buff will be going across to hyrqBot once again. That was the smite being used out. 1 minute 35 before the dragon is spawned, though, so no problems there. And Celaver continues to keep that farm advantage up. You can see it's nearly closing in on 100 CS advantage over Freeze. But Freeze himself, he's got 4-1-3, so his gold advantage is actually quite big right now.
I actually think until Celaver gets an Infinity Edge, he is weaker than Freeze. He's actually went with a fairly lane-specific Caitlyn build, the Bloodthirster Static Shiv Last Whisper, and the defensive item, so he's not pumping out nearly as much damage as Lucian is capable of right now, despite the 1,000 more gold he's accumulated.
Well, it's a definite Baron dance this time around. Still continuing to hold. They know that this is such a big play for them. Overpow thought he was going to face check for a minute. That would have been a bad choice. Sweeper getting used. They're going to make sure that vision is taken away from KMT, and that's the big difference we're seeing here. A lot of those sweepers starting to be picked up once again, not being upgraded just yet, just the standard sweepers in there, but every time them wards get placed down, they get cleared back out once again by NIP. Nobody being allowed vision. They're going to try and sweep out the Baron here. There it is. You can see Vander. Got to be careful, though, because Zorozero is close by.
At any moment, we could see the fight entirely break out. I think once hyrqBot uses an ultimate, knowing that most flashes across both sides are up right now, it's actually Freeze is the only person in the game without a flash. That will signal it. And the very unfortunate thing for NIP right now is despite the 1,300 total gold value of the Dragon at this point in this game, NIP doesn't have an exact timer on it, and KMT does. So this gold is going to go to them once again.
Yeah, other than I think it was the first 2 dragons NIP managed to pick up. They've not even been close to it. And again, all that gold heading back to KMT's direction gives them that 4,000 gold advantage currently. Xaxus and Zorozero, they've been going at it the entire game and never yet really got aggressive with one another. They've just continued to farm out, and they think they've caught an advantage here. Instead, they're just going to sweep out the wards once again, taking away the death bush, and the boredom continues.
I feel like Zorozero is going for some kind of world record. Farm across 2 games without getting a kill yet. He's at almost 800, but this is the Baron rush, and they're a little late on this support.
Overpow is a little out of position here. He's now coming into the side, the backside area of this.
This has got to be a field fight.
They have to go for it. hyrqBot's going to look to go in. Doesn't manage to get it. The talisman was used. Instead, they're going to go for the Baron. They get the Baron. NIP, can they make anything with it? There's going to be the curse of the Sad Mommy. He catches 1, 2 members. Xaxus has to run away. Overpow puts his ultimate down onto him. No kills yet, but it's KMT running for their lives. That's a good Piltover. It catches across 5 members of NIP. The hook on towards hyrqBot. What are you doing, Vander? That's not the target you want. Flashes out of it straight away from that bandage toss. Still no deaths, but it's NIP with the Baron.
And, all right. I guess they're just going to back away like that. That is a very interesting fight with no one dying. They're very low on damage here. KMT trying to re-engage a team with Baron. Always dangerous.
Talisman used, they turn it back around. There was just a bait. Jankos is now going to get caught out, stunned in there. That's going to be Overpow. Now they get caught on. hyrqBot's a little deep. That's going to be a good counter strike coming out from Xaxus, but this is a Baron up ninjas in pajamas. Jankos does take down Mithy off of the side there. Nukeduck is in a duel as well, but that's going to be Freeze taking down Xaxus. Nukeduck running for his life. The culling being used, but not really finding much damage onto Vander, and it's actually NIP that lost 2 members to 1.
What a chaotic fight we saw there. KMT daring NIP to fight them even though they had the Baron buff. And KMT played most of that fight extremely well while NIP was a little bit scattered. And because they won that fight despite playing a Baron up team, they're still looking to be on the offensive.
Well, let me see ninjas in pajamas chasing on. That's going to be the cleanse being used down 90 caliber net, but Overpow turns the fight around. Goes to go aggressive on Freeze, but he hasn't got the damage this time around. Zorozero gets in his face. The hook being thrown out from Vander, but the box is put down. That ultimate should stop this chase in his tracks.
Because the Baron regen was on NIP, they were much healthier for that fight than KMT necessarily expected. But the actual ability for these guys to engage with each other is low. And the amount of tank items that have been built in this game are making the fights a little bit messy in this case. This one in particular is messy. The thing to track in this fight, actually, I want to watch the Riven and the Caitlyn over on the right when they go for him, because Celaver, I believe, completely outplayed Nukeduck here. Nukeduck peels away from the brunt of the fight and just tries to assassinate him. He actually flashed onto him with the barrier, but doesn't do anything. He flashed over the wall, and then he was just able to kill Nukeduck or push him out from there, and the rest of KMT continued to finish off this fight, and they just destroyed them. Does he end up getting him here?
No.
No. Thought he died.
No.
I was wrong. Yeah. He outplayed him, though.
He did outplay him. He didn't get close to doing that damage that was required, but it's still a close game. Just 3,000 gold between them. But look at this. KMT up against the ninjas in pajamas with the Baron, not really caring, pushing on, and actually trying to catch Nukeduck out of position. He's already running for his life up towards there. Cocoon's not going to find his target because he's well away. But that's a tower that they may actually go for, even though the ninjas in pajamas have the Baron.
Yeah, the Baron's still only on 3 people, though, and the Kayle power from Overpow is just seeming to take over. He's almost at his Deathfire grasp once again. And the fact that he didn't even have to burn his Kayle ultimate in that big fight near the Baron buff is more trouble for NIP. They've taken a lot more initiative this game, but they don't seem to have the way of engaging like they really want to.
As it stands, KMT got to be careful. NIP looking to try and use a bit of a positional advantage here. They realize that KMT have scattered. They see Overpow in the top. They're going to try and push down and towards this middle turret. It's going to be a 4-on-5, and Overpow's only just teleporting back, so he's got a long time to get here. This should be NIP's turret, but there's no minions to help them out.
Yeah, they're not killing that too fast, and it's because their entire team is actually fairly defensive-oriented. Amumu and Renekton are both fully defensive in their build paths. Even Freeze built a fairly early Banshee's Veil by his standards, and Nukeduck went for the Spirit Visage. Plus, Mithy no ability power on his Annie, a totally defensive Annie build. That's another big reason they're not killing stuff in fights, because they haven't built damage.
Overpow coming from behind. He's found Nukeduck. He's actually putting a lot of damage down while the Curse of the Sad Mummy is used out. Nukeduck's almost dead as well, but they turn it back on towards Overpow. Overpow puts the damage back on towards Nukeduck. Meanwhile, the rest of the team are cleaning up. Celaver gets one. Zorezero's taking down Overpow, though. Nukeduck's going to be the focus target. Mithy drops so low, but it is going to be Ninjas and Pyjamas cleaning up. Can they get one more kills? They have 3 for 2 right now, and it's Celaver once again running away.
These fights are so close, in large part to the tankiness of these guys, but it's definitely NIP coming out on top of that one, trying to get maybe a turret after this.
And remember, 3 members had the Baron, so that was some pretty ballsy play from KMT, and it may actually be to the detriment of themselves, because that is going to be another turret going down. This is the first time Ninjas in Pyjamas have had a turret advantage in this game.
And are they going to continue to try and push this one, because there's definitely going to be a Caitlyn coming at them pretty quick. At this point, NIP is just wasting time.
Well, Vander just trying to force them away there, just baiting out the hook, trying to see if he can cause anything. Drew out the culling, but look at this fight.
This was extremely chaotic, and it all hinged on the nice lockdown from hyrqBot, but mainly the peel onto Overpow. Everyone was able to jump off him, and Mithy snuck down the bottom to eventually get that stun. Then there was some really cute playing. The Tibbers was sitting in KMT for most of that fight and took them fairly low. But the fights continue.
The fights continuing. Celaver's being caught out. Zorozero can get the stun down on it. The play comes out. Celaver has been dropped out now. And that is the AD carry down. The Baron's up in 1 minute 23, so time for him to respawn. Only just so. But the Dragon is up, and it is going to be first time. Third Dragon potentially for Ninjas in Pyjamas, but more importantly, this is the one that's worth the gold.
Yeah, and the gold is even now. NIP finally gets the gold lead back. It is their 3rd Dragon of the game, and it's all because Zorozero snuck up on Celaver right there. He was in a place where no one expected him to be, deep within the KMT jungle, while the game was still pretty much considered even, and that's why Celaver got caught off guard. And that was a while ago, but it's still a 30-second death timer, so they're going to look to maybe get some inhibitor damage here.
Sweepers back and forward, trying to keep those wards away from the base. Instead, they just throw another 2 down there. It's like, hey, you're going to clear it out. We're going to put more back down. What can they gain from this? Can they take any objectives? Will they move up towards that top turret? That's where we see Zorozero going right now, but the rest of the team have all backed away. So instead, they're happy with that singular objective, and they're just going to back off again.
And oftentimes, what teams like to do when they have trouble really locking down teams for fights, just go for Baron. It's what NIP has already done this game. It's how they actually, in a long-winded way, got this Baron. The gold is dead even, but it's still NIP that can't find fights. So with the Baron coming up in about 5 seconds, I think that's where NIP goes next.
Yeah, seemingly in the fights, it's actually KMT that run into them to find themselves hyrqBot throwing that Curse of the Sad Mummy out. Every time it's been KMT, they are the aggressor. Not quite working out for them as it was in game 1. They've not been able to get that split push going, that free farm going they've been enjoying in game 1. And you can see, look at the gold. Gigantic gold farm across the board, really, for both of these teams, because they are, well, even now. It's just advantages gained for each time. The 2 top laners, just 500 between them. But when you're talking 16,000 gold to 15,500, it's not that great. The culling used very early on from Freeze this time around.
And Nukeduck was actually off in the bottom jungle, so KMT had a bit of an opportunity to try and get something there. Culling, obviously, just to safely try and get them off. And I'm looking at the Caitlyn item build right now for Celaver. He's getting close to max items, but it's very difficult for him to cut through Zorozero's Renekton, only because Zorozero's Renekton is sitting on 328 armor, plus that Thornmail. And it's actually interesting that I think the Thornmail for Zorozero at this point in the game is doing more damage to Celaver than Renekton himself can, just because he's hitting for such large amounts of damage. And the damage Thornmail deals back calculates off the pre-mitigation damage that Celaver would be hitting. So it actually hits him back really hard. And he needs to lifesteal a bit extra through that.
Well, that Infinity Edge is completed, like you say. Now he's closing in on that big build. That was the item that needed to turn the power advantage. Has it, though? We're going to move into the next fight. And, of course, that Zeke's being picked up by both supports as well. Both supports, of course.
There's your extra lifesteal.
Getting that extra lifesteal, yeah, for their AD carries and for their mid laners as well, because Nukeduck and Overpow will be gaining from that as well as Zorozero and Xaxus. So really both these teams actually very similar in builds, despite the fact there's obviously completely different champions. The junglers really are the only two that's setting this apart. And looking at the builds that Jankos had in the first game is actually closing in on the a similar type of build.
Yeah, he's almost hit the exact same items he went for before. And I'm really just waiting for this fight to happen. It's a rather tense situation, knowing that NIP has played this game much better than they did game 1. But also, if they mess up here, 2-0 down is what we thought would be nearly impossible to come back from, but actually ended up happening yesterday in our promotion tournament. It is just so unexpected for NIP to be in this situation in the first place.
Yeah, and there is a hell of a lot of pressure on hyrqBot and Mithy to land that single keystroke of R. That's all they have to do at the right time. It could turn the fight, but my God, that pressure. Yep. The big minion wave in the bottom lane is going to continue pushing. We already saw them putting damage down on towards that bottom inhibitor turret before. Nobody can go near it, as it is, because as soon as they show themselves, NIP will start this Baron.
And if we track kind of what's happened in this game, Mithy's Tibbers has been the ones that are on point. It's hyrqBot who hasn't been able to land the ults.
Oh, they've hooked him in. He's taken him so low. He's got to use Curse of the Sad Moment because he's already down. Tibbers was also used there, I feel, and that's going to be two big ultimates burned out. KMT already turning their attention towards the Baron. Zorozero gets spotted out. Overpow's going to try and bully him away. Meanwhile, the rest of Ninjas in Pyjamas, they're just off the bottom here. But you can see it's Xaxus, and
they got to give it up.
A lot of damage. They've got to give up the Baron. The Baron will go across, and it's KMT now with the advantage.
And now they have to run out of here as quickly as possible. The fact that they were sticking around means their response time is a little bit slow. They're going after Nukeduck.
They're going to throw out the hook, but he forces the flash. I think it would miss anyway, but he's well out of position now. It's going to be KMT shoving for the inhib.
And it can all be about that one mistake. We said hyrqBot has a lot of pressure on him with that R key. What if he almost dies before he gets to use it? This is trouble. They shred down turrets, and it's still a 4v5.
And the irony is it was him that started the bandage shots before the hook landed on him. It was what he wanted, but it certainly didn't work out how he wanted it. That's going to be the first inhibitor of the game going down. It is KMT looking to try and close this game to 2-0.
Amazing. 51 minutes and 30 seconds into the game, we see our first inhibitor death. And it's for the team that is down by 6 kills, only because they have so much power in these team fights and they disengage so well when needed. It's the objective game that KMT has really been able to come out on top of. Overpow in particular shreds people. It doesn't matter how tanky hyrqBot thinks he is right now. He's mainly itemized armor because he's worried about Celaver. But that's the threat of Overpow right now. With over 700 ability power and that Deathfire Grasp, nobody on NIP is safe.
The pressure on these players now must be unsurmountable. 3 members had their job security in the LCS. Now they are looking at potentially not even being there. Staring 0-2 in the face. KMT have played this exactly how they wanted it. NIP, they wanted to go slow, but it's played into KMT's favor. They can play fast and loose in the next 3 games.
Yeah, they've been playing fast and loose compared to NIP in a couple of these games.
If you call this fast and loose?
Fast and loose. 22 kills in 52 minutes.
It's gone.
Fast and loose. No, seriously though, the distortion boots as well on Nukeduck is because he's having trouble getting involved in these team fights, and he wants to make sure his flash is up as much as possible. Unfortunately, it's still on cooldown. And this 4v4 at this turret is hard to hold.
The culling coming out there. Can they try and throw out any hooks? It did land on Mithy. He pulled in, but they didn't really want it available. But that culling is only going to do so much. And look at this. Overpow. Nukeduck can't stop him driving them turrets down.
No, that Riven versus Kale matchup is just completely one-sided. He won't be able to stop him going for that next inhibitor.
He's driving it through, and Nukeduck's doing what he can, but look at that turret already, almost
down. A couple hits.
Nukeduck can clear that wave, but by God, he's already done the damage. He comes in, bang, smacks that turret down, inner turret down in the top. Suddenly, KMT turning their advantage on. It's 8-5 in turrets, and there didn't seem to be a lot NIP could do to stop this Baron up team pushing.
They're going to have to try and kill Overpow to save this inhibitor, but that puts their 3rd inhibitor at just as much risk.
They're going to go for it, you can see, but he's going to turn it around. Nukeduck's just getting melted down, dropped straight away. Zorozero's got to run for it. A 2v1 from Overpow will be enough to take down Zorozero. He's got the regen. Is it going to be enough?
Wow.
Yes, it is. And in the top lane, they close it out. KMT going huge when it counts. And just like that, Overpow in game 1 on Kale caused the problems. He does it again, and Ninjas in Pyjamas are now 0-2 down to KMT.